Man, I am not feeling like myself this week. So let's talk about it. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is my weeks 6 and 7 post-op update after my gastric bypass procedure. Why is this a week 6 and 7 update? Oh, let me tell you. I have not felt like myself this week. I've just felt totally off and something that I can't quite pinpoint. As badly as I kept wanting to get out my 6-week update, I just could not find it in myself to take the time to film it and honestly to do something productive. I had a very tough week and it was really tough to get through work and to concentrate just on normal life, and I don't know how much of that is related to my weight loss process or not. I wanted to at least come on and explain and be honest about how I've been feeling, because again, I don't know if it's part of the process or not, but I do know the statistics, and I do know that feeling emotionally drained and emotionally off is really not uncommon for this process. So it might be just something I'm experiencing right now. But I'll get into the more recent stuff a little bit later on. I at least want to go over my stats and talk about week 6 first before I get into what happened this week. So I'm going to throw my stats for week 6 up right here. In case you don't already know, my highest recorded weight was 383.3 pounds, and I started surgery at 344 pounds even. So on week 6, I weighed in at 318.4 pounds, which was a 3.6 pound loss for that week. So week 6 was coming off of week 5, naturally. But week 5, I was nauseous a lot. Almost everything I ate made me feel kind of off and nauseous in some way. And that was the first time I'd really experienced that. So going into week 6, I wasn't really sure what to expect. And I was kind of planning on going back to some simpler foods and just taking things one step at a time rather than jumping forward with too many new solid foods at once. What I started to realize though, as I was looking back through my app and all of the food and things that I've been recording, I started to see a correlation between the days that I really didn't hit my water goals and then the next mornings feeling really nauseous and sick. And I started to piece together that my nausea was not really stemming from the foods that I was eating, but it's stemming from dehydration. This is something I wasn't expecting, and I didn't know would affect me that way. But once I started piecing together that if I don't hit about 60 ounces of water minimum, I really can notice the next day that I don't quite feel right, and almost anything I eat or drink will just make me feel nauseous. Once I started to get my water under control and started rehydrating from this whole week of realizing that everything just wasn't working for me and I wasn't quite doing it right, I started tackling the next problem that I had identified, which was that I was getting really hungry and therefore irritable a lot. Some of the post-op information that was emailed to me was recommending that I stick to 3 meals a day, and that's what I've been trying to do. But I've noticed, especially between lunch and dinner, I have this time frame when I get extremely hungry, and it makes me very irritable, and it makes me really emotional, and I just have a really hard time when I come home from work and then try to get everything set up so that I can have dinner quickly, especially if I don't have something already made that I can just heat up. So you'd think that it would just be as simple as making sure that I'm eating a snack between that time, but because of the dehydration issue that I was dealing with, I've had a very hard time figuring out how to add in meals with the 30-minute wait before and after the meal when it comes to drinking. It's really been hard for me to try to figure out how to do that correctly and not drink too soon when it comes to my eating windows. So I was afraid that if I added some more eating times that I was going to fall further behind in my water intake. So I just took it upon myself to make sure that every time I was not within that eating window, I was making sure that I was drinking. I set alarms on my phone every 15 minutes to remind myself that I need to drink, just in case too much time had gone by and I hadn't taken a drink. With this, I was able to actually add in a small healthy snack before I left work. So I've been eating at about 3:30 p.m. when I get hungry. And I've been eating things like a yogurt or a bit of cottage cheese, something that's still a high protein snack, but is a healthy, really simple and easy on my stomach option. I actually also added another snack into my day because while I'm at it, I figured I might as well tackle both of the times that I really noticed that my hunger would get kind of ravaging. And that's right before bed. I was noticing I was going to bed hungry and just kind of pushing through it and feeling kind of miserable as I was trying to go to sleep because my stomach would just sit there and churn and grumble, and I was just really uncomfortable. So I decided to also add another healthy snack right before bed. And that's been something that I've been doing for the past week and a half, and has really, really helped me. Both of these snacks have made a huge difference. Not only am I hitting my calorie goals now, whereas I was always coming up just a little short before and I couldn't figure out why, but on top of that, I'm just feeling better and more consistent, and that I'm not having these spikes of just getting really hungry and then feeling full and then really hungry and feeling full. It's been able to really flatline me when it comes to my food, and I think really has been helping with my irritability, me getting hangry, and me getting emotional. Now, when I say that I get emotional and just have a really hard time in those times between meals, I'm not joking. I came home from work one night and I was just crying. And I looked at my boyfriend and I was just with tears in my eyes. I was like, I'm so hungry and I'm miserable right now. And that's when we had decided together, we need to figure out a plan to get you so that you can eat before you come home. So eating more and drinking more has really helped stabilize me and just make me feel overall like this is much more sustainable. Not that I wasn't having those thoughts before or that I thought this wasn't sustainable, but it's just really solidified that I'm still learning and figuring out what the best solution is for me and how to move forward with my new habits, my new eating habits, my new snacking habits, and how to make sure that I'm doing everything right for me, because that's something that we have to test out. There's really no blueprint that everybody can follow. We just really have to experiment and listen to our own bodies. And there's a lot of times that you can't really look at the internet for the answers when it comes to your particular body and your particular situation. The last thing that I really noticed week 6 is something that we really need to talk about. So let's talk about poop. I did a lot of research before getting my surgery, and one of the things that I saw consistently was that post-op, there's gonna be some poop changes. Overwhelmingly, I saw a lot of instances of people warning that you would have a lot of loose stools and that you should never trust a fart. Oddly enough, though, I have had what I would consider almost the opposite problem. Ever since starting solid foods and eating solid foods more regularly, I've noticed that there's a lot more constipation and a lot more firm and difficult bowel movements. Because I track everything that I eat and everything that I do pretty much in my Bariatric app, I was able to start looking back and seeing a pattern that I wasn't really hitting my fiber goals. And that's not really surprising because I can't eat the same volume of vegetables like I did before, which is, I think, probably where I got most of my fiber. So I'm adding a fiber supplement to my regimen, and I'm just trying to keep better track of it. So post-surgery, I would really recommend making sure that you have fiber on the mind and you're paying attention to your habits and things that might affect this, because nobody wants to have either end of that spectrum. You don't want to be having the runs constantly, and you don't want to have constipation and a really tough time going. So finding that sweet spot again is kind of about balance and listening to your own body and trying to figure out what you need to make that work. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So moving on to week 7. I'm going to throw the stats up for week 7 right here. This week I weighed in at 317.6 pounds. So that was a 0.8 pound loss for the week, and it puts me at 26.4 pounds lost total since surgery. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty of what happened week 7, I definitely want to first start off by saying that I had to take a dose of my own medicine this week and really give myself some self-talk, because if I'm going to sit here and pretend like my 0.8 pound loss didn't upset me this morning, then I would be a total liar. One of the things that I find myself saying most often, I think, on the support page on Mexico Bariatric Center's Facebook is that people need to stop obsessing over the number on the scale, and they need to not weigh themselves obsessively, and they need to not consider something a stall when it's really not a stall. I'll see all the time that people get really upset when they don't lose any weight one week, and they fail to recognize how much weight they've actually lost in the time frame that they have right now, and they're not proud of the progress that they're making. And so this morning, on top of everything else that happened this week, I started feeling down and discouraged that I lost less than a pound. I had to give myself a reality check, and I had to remind myself of how far I've come and what my big picture is. So let's talk about that. What is my big picture? Well, my big picture is that since October 6th, which is when I started my pre-op diet, I've lost 56.4 pounds. So if I put that into perspective, I've lost an average of 3.7 pounds per week. Did I have some weeks where I lost 10 pounds? Yes. Did I have some weeks where I lost 0.8 pounds? Yes. But on average, I'm dropping over 3.5 pounds a week. And that is incredible progress. I don't think I've ever gone 3 months with this kind of progress before. I certainly have never lost 56.4 pounds in this amount of time before. So I can't let myself get discouraged over a week here and there that isn't the right amount of weight loss for what I'm looking for. This process is going to happen, and I'm going to lose a lot of weight. But not every week is equal. And there's a lot of things to take into consideration. And I need to give my body a chance to catch up to what's going on. Once I did the math and I was looking at my big picture, I felt so much better. And I was able to stop focusing on the number, because in all honesty, the number doesn't matter. What really matters is that I'm feeling better, I can do things better than I could before, and also that I'm losing enough weight that people are starting to recognize and starting to notice that my face looks slimmer and that I look a little bit healthier. Those are the things that matter. Those are the things that got me into this process to begin with. I never, ever went into surgery with an idea of a goal weight. I still don't have a goal weight. I don't know what it's going to be. I want to be happy and healthy and comfortable in my body and be able to do the things that I want to do. It's not about a number on the scale. So I need to remember that right now. It's still not about the number on the scale, and it never will be. So let's talk about week 7. I was just not feeling it this week. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel very happy. I don't want to say I felt sad or angry. I just didn't feel very happy. I felt kind of blasé about almost everything. I had a very hard time with motivation. I had a very hard time with concentration. I just overall didn't really feel like I was with it. I've been struggling staying hydrated, especially following the week where I realized that dehydration causes me to feel uncomfortable and nauseous all day long. I was striving really hard to make sure that I was meeting my water goals, and I still was having issues meeting those goals. And although I think I made a better attempt and I have been making progress, ultimately I just felt this week like drinking my water is so much harder than I anticipated it being. And it is so important. And so it becomes this stressor of needing to make sure that I'm drinking frequently enough and that I'm drinking enough to not feel sick, but feeling like I'm just not ever reaching that goal. It's really easy to fall behind. And I think that's what I noticed in week 7, because I was a little bit busier at work than I have been, and it was just super easy for me to fall behind. One of the other things that was kind of this very prevalent feeling this week was that I have a really hard time feeling like I have any sort of huge sense of accomplishment. Now, I started off this section talking about how I looked at the big picture and I've lost 56.4 pounds in a relatively short amount of time. And, looking at that picture makes me feel better. But in all honesty, I didn't do that until today, because today was my weigh-in, and today was when I realized how little I lost during the week, and I needed to give myself a pep talk. So during the whole week, I just was feeling like I wasn't really very accomplished. And it's not necessarily, again, the number on the scale. I'm having a mental block right now because in 2019, I finally reached 75 pounds lost from the few years that I had been on Weight Watchers going up and down, and I finally hit this stride, and I finally got to a point where I lost 75 pounds. It was the lightest that I had been in years, and I was just about to cross under 300 pounds. I was, I think, about 3 pounds away, and I was feeling better than I ever had been. I was more active than I ever had been, and it just felt like one of the best years that I had. And then starting at the end of 2019 and going into 2020, I gained all of that weight back. And that's kind of what led me to this journey and going through surgery and finally saying, I need the help. I can't do this by myself. I just need a little extra tool that can help me stay successful. And I have been, and I feel great. And I can't even begin to tell you how my relationship with food has been changing and all of the wonderful differences now that I've gone through surgery. But I still have the 75 pounds hanging over my head. No matter how much self-talk and how much I really sit down and think about it and rationalize it, I'm just not able to feel accomplished because I still feel like I'm working off all of the weight that I recently gained. And until I hit that point where I am now losing new weight and I'm going beyond my 75 pounds, I don't know how accomplished I'm going to really feel. I still just feel like I'm trying to get back to where I was so I can continue my journey from there. And I fully recognize that that is not the mindset that I really want. So what I tried to do towards the end of this week was start to remind myself of the non-scale victories and the things that are not number related that I'm noticing. And it really started perking me up and really making me feel a little bit more of those accomplishments that I should be feeling this whole time. So the first thing that I identified is that I'm back in all of my pants. In fact, some of my pants really could use a belt. I bought 3 new pairs of pants for work right around the time that I had lost those 75 pounds. And I was not able to fit in them for months after I gained weight back. to the point where I didn't really have any of my big pants left. And so I was kind of wearing leggings and skirts and dresses, and that's it. It was really humiliating to me. Even though no one really knew the struggle I was going through, I knew that I couldn't fit into any pants that I owned. And it just felt really awful that I had gotten myself big enough again that I was out of a complete set of things for my wardrobe. I am back in all of those pants, including one of the pairs that I hadn't even taken the tags off of yet before I grew out of them again. And then the last really simple example that I came up with was that one morning I went to go tie my shoes, and I literally just bent over and tied them and stood back up. And I realized that I hadn't been able to do that for a while. I always had to put my foot up on like a chair or on a bench in order to tie my shoe. And even that would be kind of difficult to reach and to deal with. And in this case, I literally just bent over and tied it and stood back up, and I didn't even have to think about it. It's things like that that I really am trying to focus on and realize how my quality of life is getting better, because it doesn't matter what the number on the scale is. What matters is how I'm living my life. What matters is what I can do and what things don't bother me or exhaust me anymore. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to those non-scale victories way more than what the scale says every morning when you wake up obsessively weighing yourself. That will ruin the whole journey if you let it. And I've been trying really hard to make sure I don't get to that point. But no matter how much I preach it, I'm still a person. I'm still going through the same process. And there are times when I find myself getting disappointed over things that I really have to just remind myself are not worth getting disappointed about. Because look at how far I've come and look at what I'm able to do now. Those are the things that I need to focus on. And that's why the mental health portion of this entire process is so important. Self-care is super important, and also just making sure that you are mentally in the right headspace for this. It's so much more important than people give it credit for. And it's a lot of work. Trust me, it's a lot of work. Thank you so much for watching and following along with my journey. Feel free to subscribe and ring the notification bell if you enjoy these updates, and if you're looking forward to any other videos just about weight loss surgery in general. I do like to sprinkle those in here and there in case you're prepping for surgery and maybe doing a whole bunch of research. So I hope you guys have a great week, stay safe, and I'll see you next time for my 2-month update. Bye.